there we go.
Hey there.
Hey everybody.
Hey guys.
So once that starts popping up, we'll be able to see how many people are there.
Okay. Very cool.
So and make sure we knock that off. And then once people start commenting, they should just in theory pop up.
Okay.
So, and it
Very
actually
cool.
did load up.
It did load up.
Sweet.
Yep.
Cool. So
what are your Periscope names so I can watch from Dr. Mike?
it should be the exact same.
Okay.
So, oh, we got one viewer. Hey,
Got one
there. How you guys doing?
guys.
We got a couple more viewers.
Yeah, a couple people
Yeah,
coming on.
this is the first time we've tried doing this together, so please bear with us here for a little bit while we get
figure
this all
out the details
out and let everyone know what's going on. But yes, we are currently live at IAGLR 2016 here in Guelph, Ontario. So we're going to have some fun and talk about how we use scicomm, how it's helped us. I mean, we were just Twitter friends. I mean, until
we just
2
met
days
in person.
ago.
Yeah.
So,
Meeting in person a couple days ago was
Yeah.
our first encounter. Yeah.
so we're big fans of social media. We're expanding our social media into Periscope now. So, any questions you have about stuff, just text them on through, and we will answer to the best we can. So thank you for the hearts. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. So for me, social media is a really great resource. I like the fact that I can be able to talk to other scientists all around the world. It really expands my resource base. As a grad student at Central Michigan University, I find that I've got great people there that I can talk to about stuff, but sometimes it's nice to be able to go outside your university and see what other people are doing. And it's not just about school or your research, it's also having people who you can just depend on and talk to, and they are coming kind of from the same perspective as you because they are scientists. So just your daily life stuff, you can talk to them and they can relate to you about it. So
yeah, it's having that network of people that you can talk to, kind of just echoing your sentiment. I find that as a grad student at Notre Dame, I've got a lot of people around me, but it's super nice to interact with people doing field work in a lot of different places. I love going on Twitter because it's always I see pictures from these really exotic places, people doing science out in the field, and that's such a cool thing for me. It really reminds me sometimes why I love doing science.
And I think it helps inspire you to see everyone doing all this really cool stuff. I mean, I work with mute swans and invasive species here in the Great Lakes area, but I love seeing everyone else's stuff. There's some guys in Australia that are working with sharks, and that stuff is so cool, and I love that. And you can pick some of those little things that they're doing. I'm like, hey, that might actually be an application that I can use for my research.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
it's a great, idea reservoir almost. It's like you see people using these tools and using these techniques, and just it's definitely just a source of inspiration. You can learn. It's really just, for me, it's keeping an ear almost to the ground, to the floor of science, of ecology, and I love seeing when people post articles and stuff, post their work. I think that's super helpful. It's I may not have run across this paper had I not seen it pop up on Twitter.
Right, and I read somewhere, I think it was last week, some posts were going around about how much more likely your paper is to be downloaded and read if you publicize that on Twitter. And that was such a really good post, and I think a great way of how social media can help publicize your work. You're advertising your work, you're advertising those other people's works that you're retweeting. When I'm here at a conference, I try to do as best I can tweet out talks that are about to come up to try to inspire people to get them in the door to that talk of say my colleagues or other people whose research I think is really interesting.
Definitely. No, I think, and even at conferences, not only getting people in the door, for the people at home who are kind of remotely attending the conference, it's nice for them to be able to see what's going on, what people are talking about, what the field is what's new in the field.
Yeah. So what kind of, we talk about so many positive stuff. Have you seen any negatives with social media yet?
That's actually a really good question. I was just scrolling my feed earlier today, and apparently there was some issue that, someone's science had been misrepresented on social media, and so I've seen that come up again. Sometimes when we're trying to, reduce something down to the sound bite, things can get misinterpreted, and it's not necessarily malicious all the time, but sometimes I know that can be an issue. I don't know about you, if you've seen things
Yeah, I haven't had too many negatives. I know how easy it is to try to like click on something and you're just like, you're assuming that that is correct.
Right.
It's so easy to want to just retweet it rather than actually go through and see, all right, is that information correct? Especially when you're dealing with science too, that becomes a really big issue. You want to make sure that information is correct before you send it out to all your followers, because they might just assume it's correct because you said it was.
Absolutely, because you're like, you know, an authority on
right,
that. Even though you
exactly.
I totally understand. There's just that really, like, oh, I can just retweet this and not look at it critically. And I think sometimes that's a trap I need to personally watch myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely for me, I would say the benefits far outweigh the negatives. One of the other negatives I would find is sometimes it's very easy to kind of get trapped into it, you know, where, you know, you see those old things of, you know, teenagers just scrolling up and down on Facebook constantly, you know, to the wee hours of the night. And sometimes scicomm can kind of be like that, where you just want to be on there all the time and you're just going through all this stuff, and it's so interesting that you find yourself kind of losing yourself in it. But the benefits of the connections that you make, I think, far outweigh that. And as long as you can learn to moderate yourself, even when I have my phone constantly with me at all times,
exactly,
it's still learning to make sure that you engage with people outside of your phone as well as, you know, inside the phone.
Yeah, there's something to be said for this interpersonal connection at a conference or something that you don't necessarily get with when you're communicating over, you know, Twitter, over a blog post. So they're both really important, and I think they can complement each other, just kind of like what you were saying, everything in moderation.
Yeah, and the nice thing too with, you know, getting to know people through Twitter ahead of time before you get to conference, like I felt like I've known Katie for so long now, because we've been talking back and forth on Twitter and we see each other's posts, and it gives you that sense of familiarity. So that way when you actually finally meet that person, awkward hug at all.
I was gonna say, I went for the awkward hug when Nicole and I first met. So
it makes you be able to, I think, bridge those connections a lot faster, rather than, okay, this is going to be a whole week of trying to get to know each other. Are we going to be friends or not? Well, we already know we're going to be friends, and it's just like, okay, you're a normal person when I see you. Okay, great, then we're good to go. Let's, you know, have a great conference and have fun. And look, now we're periscoping 2 days into the conference.
We're trying this fun experiment here. So
hey, we're periscoping live. You want to say hi to the world?
Say hi to
hey,
the
this is Hunter Carrick, a professor at Central Michigan University. So we're talking about scicomm and how it interacts with conferences and other things for scientists.
Yeah.
So,
has it been a good conference for you?
Yeah, it's been a very good conference. Yeah. Can't complain.
Have you moved?
I will be going shortly. So.
Congratulations.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah. Actually, speaking of that, this was my very first IAGLR conference this year, so I've been having a great time. I know you're a veteran.
Yes, I love IAGLR. It's definitely one of my favorite conferences. If you have anything to do with Great Lakes at all, come to the IAGLR conferences.
Absolutely.
It is a great group of people, such a wide variety of topics. I'm a wildlife ecologist, but there are geologists here. I mean, just
hydrology,
all along the spectrum. And you learn so much, and you get to see so many different topics. And, you know, while it's nice to be able to go to a conference where you can specialize a little bit more about yourself, it's also nice to be able to see that wide impact of everything.
Absolutely.
And I also like the fact, too, that we work with Canadians. I mean, it's every other conference is either in the U.S. or in Canada, and the nice thing about that is it really bridges that connection. I mean, the people I hang out with here, it's so nice to have that connection. Every conference, I basically got adopted by the Pat Chow Fraser Lab from McMaster University, and so every year now I hang out with them, and it's just, you don't get that at some other conferences because people do get more specialized and just hang out. But here I feel like it's a very wide group of people. Everyone's willing to talk to each other about stuff, and it's a lot of fun.
I totally agree. I think that's one of the nice things about like the Great Lakes is there's just so much collaboration going on between disciplines, between countries. And so with collaboration being the name of the game, these conferences are really about, you know, meeting people, expanding your circle, and really learning what's going on in the region. And so that's one of the benefits I see of having like IAGLR as a regional meeting.
And IAGLR does a really good job if you're a student. They really take care of you. A lot of conferences you go to, you're charged $200, $300, sometimes maybe even up to $400. Even if you're a student, even if you get their early registration fee, you know, it's still very expensive. IAGLR, I paid $25 to come here this year. I mean, how is that possible? And it is a really nice conference. I mean, we are getting fed left and right. There are so many events that we get to go to. I mean, we are getting way more than our bang for the buck that you could ever possibly ask for.
And that's not even including all the interaction we get with, like, you know, scientists in our field, professors from other universities. Just the whole networking experience itself is invaluable.
Thank you. But yeah, you have almost 700 scientists here. So I mean, it's not, you know, the size of AFS or Wildlife Society or ESA. You know, it's still a decent sized conference. So you have a lot of people here. So it's not, you know, you're just only interacting with 50 people. There's a lot of people here, big conference, and it's so cheap. It is like, it's like amazing. As a student, you can't not come here.
Honestly, like, why wouldn't you come here? Yeah. No, honestly, this has been, and I've been on like the national conference circuit, and those big conferences are obviously really awesome because you get to see some of the best work, the newest emerging work in the field. But there's something to be said about these slightly smaller conferences, and I wouldn't even call IAGLR small this year. No. It's what, 700 people that are registered? So definitely not small, but it's got more of an intimate feel, I think, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, like I feel like you really get to know people here. And Great Lakes, there's something really special about the Great Lakes too, and I think that we're all extremely proud of working in the Great Lakes system because it's such a valuable system. You know, you don't see this kind of system anywhere around the world. It's so unique, and to be able to help protect it, these scientists are very proud of being able to do that and make it a quality location.
Absolutely. The passion, I think, I mean, obviously I'm a little biased being a coastal wetland ecologist here in the Great Lakes, but I think that Great Lakes scientists are just such a passionate bunch, and that really comes through in conferences like that, and even communicating science. I mean, there's so many Great Lakes researchers out there communicating their science, and I think that's because of their passion for the system.
Okay, so we had a question here. What was the best talk that we've attended this year?
So that's so far. We're still only on day 3 of the conference, so we don't want to sell anyone short. But what's the best one we've been? We've been to separate ones, being in slightly different fields. So
I liked some of the outreach ones, maybe just because that talked to me a little bit, because I really do like the outreach and scicomm stuff. There was also they're doing some really good remote sensing talks right now. With using satellite imagery and also using UAS or drone imagery to look at things like algae in the Great Lakes, where you can just fly a drone up over the lake and be able to tell exactly how much algae is in the lake. I mean, it's impressive.
That's amazing.
So,
I almost feel like I'm living in a sci-fi movie sometimes when I see all of these drones. And there was a talk this morning about using some of those gliders that basically rely on water currents, but they're taking observations below the surface in Lake Michigan. Learning some of these real technology talks have been really interesting.
Right.
I think for me, I'm biased, of course, being a fish person, but there was a whole series of yellow perch talks yesterday, covering everything from their habitat use to morphology, and so I was having a blast there.
Yeah, and if you guys had gone to the poster session last night, Katie was awesome. Actually brought otoliths. It's the first time I've ever actually seen an otolith in person, and it was pretty impressive. I couldn't believe how small the yellow perch otolith was. It just was super tiny. Like, to have to be able to work with something small, and you're trying to like read it, like, you know, it really impressed me. And then when you said that I forgot what the fish was. It was the big giant one.
Yeah, so I also brought freshwater drum otoliths, and for those of you guys who may not be familiar, which is probably a lot of people because it's a freshwater drum, they have these really disproportionately large otoliths that actually wash up on beaches, and people call them lucky stones, and I guess it's actually a collecting thing. People go beach combing for those otoliths, but so I tried to bring like a variety of sizes just so, you know, people could see that one size does not fit all when it comes to otoliths. But yeah, poster session was pretty nice, and Nicole's got a talk here tomorrow that we're looking forward to.
So I think I'm in the afternoon. I'll have to double check. I've been just letting everything kind of fly by the seat of the pants with this conference this year. I think that's happened when you go to the same conference over and over again. You just kind of get so relaxed. You're like, oh, the talk will happen at some point in time. Someone will let me know what's going on. So.
Yeah, but so in case anyone's worried, don't worry. We'll have plenty of live tweets coming from Nicole's talk tomorrow. So
heck, I might live tweet myself. Actually, at the when I was at
impressive.
Wildlife Society last fall, I made sure, because it was the last talk of the day, and so I got just a little snarky. We'll get to that question in just half a second. But I took a photo of the crowd and live tweeted it right then, right as I was starting my talk, because I was like, you might as well have some fun. And everyone's late in the afternoon, and So who have we met for Twitter? I think was what the question was, if I remember reading it right. If I'm wrong, tweet it back out. But obviously
we met
because we only knew each other from Twitter before then. There's a couple of professors that I only knew from Twitter that I've actually gotten to meet and see, and that was really great. It's just, it's so nice. There are so many other grad students. Hey guys. You guys want to join in, or are you going to run away?
I think you're going to run away.
You're going to run away.
We think it's break time, so people are moving around.
So, I mean, there's so many people that I've met just through Twitter that are scientists that we're scheduling meetings as we're going to see each other at other conferences, or hopefully hey, they're coming back to the States, where we're in, so that maybe we can meet up and actually talk to them, which would be really great. And then the other nice thing too is if it's someone that you've met live at a conference, give each other your Twitter handles, and then you can keep in contact via Twitter. It's so great. I mean, one of the things that I picked up from someone else is on my name badge here, I always put my Twitter handle right on there, so that way everyone can pick up on it real quick.
Yeah, I like that.
And something else I would really love to see at conferences is, the little program book you get. I would love it if they would put everyone's Twitter handles in there.
That's a great idea, too.
And so that way you can just go ahead and see through it. And I know maybe not everyone wants to share it, and so that should be up to them, if they want to share it. But I mean, that would be a great way to help keep everyone in contact and help that networking process, because so many of us do use social media now. So thanks. We appreciate it.
I think it's a great idea. Nicole's the social media communication guru over here that I'm learning. Periscoping first time for me. So, but that's a great idea.
A lot of what I get is from people that I interact with on Twitter, and we bounce ideas off of each other, and it really does help. I mean, that's one of the nice things is one person might have a really good idea, but if they're talking to 10 other people, then those 10 people get that idea too, and so you can start picking all those amazing ideas that everyone has to make that social media experience that much better. And I find a conference that has really good social media really helps that conference seem just that much better. Something if you have a question of okay, why can't I connect to the Wi-Fi? If you can tweet that conference, that whoever's handling the social media for the conference, and you can get that answer back right away, that alleviates so much pressure on you. Why can't I get connected? This is frustrating. What's the biggest challenges you face as scicommers?
That's a great question.
I think for me, it's that I don't have any official training in this. The only thing, as an undergrad, I did a minor in broadcasting communications, because I always thought it would be kind of cool to go out and do wildlife filmmaking, and then I got more into the research side of stuff. And so I can kind of, I have that visualness, and I have done some of that sort of communication, not necessarily, social media communication, but a lot of it's just been self-taught. And I think that's the hardest thing, is slowly self-teaching yourself that, and just asking other people. And it feels like it's a little bit slower of a learning curve than if you had formal training.
Right.
And I think that would be kind of nice to have as scientists. We have to interact with the public. You have to talk to other people, and to be able to have someone come in and talk to grad students when they first come in, or professors when they first come in, or if you're working for an NGO or even governmental organization, to be able to have someone teach you how to interact with the public, not just when you're talking to them one-on-one while you're out in the field, but to be able to learn how to talk to them via social media would be such a great benefit, because this is such an amazing resource, and to be able to know how to use it, how do you start a periscope, things like that, to be able to have someone show you how to do it would be so amazing.
Absolutely.
I don't know about for you, but
no, I totally agree, and I will add the caveat that I did have a little bit of formal training in that at Notre Dame they offer a
module class where you meet a couple times and during a semester to talk about communicating your science, but the focus was primarily on communicating to both policymakers and to like traditional media, so to newspaper, to journalists.
Yeah.
And while that's super helpful because a lot of it's the same ideas, I don't think social media has been explored a lot, at least in terms of training. And so I would like to see that moving forward, you know, getting grad students more aware of like how they can use social media.
Right.
Because I think that's one of the important things is to take ownership of your social media presence. And I mean, everyone's on the internet these days, so if you can carve out where you are and carve out your presence, I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, because you're basically developing a brand on social media. Okay, how's doing this first Periscope encourage or discourage you to do more scopes in the future?
I'm having a blast.
Yeah, this is
I don't
great.
know,
This
hopefully
is
you guys are
fantastic.
too. But
Yeah,
I'm having a blast.
And I think the nice thing too with this is getting to have this discussion. I mean, by doing this Periscope, it's forcing us to talk about this,
Absolutely,
and like
yeah.
we're learning about this as we're talking about it. We're having a discussion that we should have anyways.
Yeah.
But we're also getting to let you guys in on that, and then ask more questions to help facilitate that discussion and make it, you know, more interesting, where we can all learn and grow. Something else I really want to do in the future is to be able to do Periscopes live from the field. So
That's
when we're
a cool idea, yeah.
out doing research, you can actually see us doing that research and you can ask questions about that. I think that's one of the biggest mysteries when it comes to science is the public doesn't know what we're doing. They just see the news reports after some editor at a TV station has read our paper, if they even actually read it all the way through.
They didn't just read the abstract.
If that, they might have just seen the title. And so that way you can see science live as it happens. You can ask those questions like, hey, what is that fish that you just pulled out? Can you tell me more about that? Or why is that swan doing that? Or what is it you're doing? That way you can interact, and that the public can ask those questions right to that scientist. And I think that like just takes away so much of that red tape that happens between scientists and the public. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that way you guys can trust us a little bit more. Scopes are surely the future of SciComm. Agree or disagree? I agree. I totally agree.
I agree.
Yeah. One thing I was talking about with one of the organizers here at IAGLR was actually doing periscopes for talks. So people who aren't able to come to the conference, whether they're at another conference or they just weren't able to get away from work or school, they can actually watch that talk live and then ask questions via Periscope, and the person holding the phone can then ask that question for them. And so that way they can still, in essence, be there live and be there at the conference, and the people from the conference are going to appreciate it because other Great Ideas Growth talks, thank you. That way they still get the people who want to be able to see their work, seeing that work, instead of like, well, I heard you had a good talk, how'd it go, and trying to track them down later. You're still able to see it right then.
And the nice part is you're still able to interact too. It's not just talking at someone, it's having that interaction, that ability to ask questions that I think is really valuable.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. Like I always love it when people ask me questions, whether I'm out in the field or if I'm presenting. I want to have all those questions because it makes me think more. It makes me, look at my science, just that slightly different way than what I ever would have. And it's so nice. Like one of the biggest things that I always like to do when I am working with any of my science is I always run it by my 8-year-old nephew.
That's a good
And
thought.
however he puts it back out at me, that's how I interact with other people. Because sometimes we get to the point of where we're like, we get so hardcore into our science, we kind of forget that not everyone knows all the back, because we've spent years working on this and researching this and reading so many papers and things like that. And so to be able to interact with the public, and I don't mean to like disparage the public saying, okay, they only have an 8-year-old mindset. I mean, that's not all, but like one of the best things that he told me is, I work with mute swans, which are invasive in Michigan. We have our threatened native species, the trumpeter swan. So my nephew came to me and he's like, oh, so you mean the Michigan swan. So the trumpeter swan is now the Michigan swan, and the mute swan, which is known for being very aggressive, he calls it the bully swan. And that explains it so much to people. So what about
for sharing lab work?
Yeah. I like that. That would be a really good idea
too. I think again that just goes back to that whole transparency thing. Like, obviously the field's the sexy part of doing, wildlife or ecology science. But I think the lab sometimes gets, the short end of the stick, and we don't really highlight what we're doing there. We say, oh, it's just lab work.
Right, and I think what would be good with that too is how many times you have to go to another institution to learn a technique. If you could do a scope from
With
the institution, you don't necessarily have to. Now, granted, I always like doing things in person. I mean, as much as I love doing stuff via Twitter and everything, it's always so much better when you can talk to someone in person. So you would miss out on that, but if you don't have the budget to be able to travel to someplace, to be able to do a scope or a periscope while you're doing some work and be able to show multiple people those techniques that you're using and be able to teach them that would be a great way to do.
Excellent idea, like a training way, and like you said, just showing techniques to a student via a scope. Before like a practical. I think there's honestly, I mean, Periscope is still a relatively new thing to me. So like I'm learning, like these all seem like excellent applications, and I definitely think this is going to be, a huge part of science communication moving forward.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of that reverse classroom that's going on, where you're doing more practical stuff in the class, and then you're having like the lectures at home. So maybe doing some of the stuff, where you're teaching lab techniques or things like that via scope. And then it also, I think, too, might be good for, say, if you're sick and you're not able to come to school or other reasons like that, doing a periscope while you're in class might really help out those students who aren't able to do that. So I hope as we move forward, Scopes will help spread information for science.
We hope so too.
Yes.
We hope so too.
I think this is just going to be the beginning of some really awesome talks and things that you can have with people. Like, I'd love to be able to just, snag some scientists and, be able to say, hey, tell us about your work. We're going to talk to everyone. And, it's such a great way to be able to do it. And then you can interact directly with us, whether or not we work with, a real sexy organism or not, there's always somebody out there who is interested in your work.
Absolutely. No, I think Periscope is going to be a huge part of science communication moving forward. I mean, just as there's emerging technologies in science, there's always emerging technologies in social media, and I think that's something that, keeping up with a scientist is really important too.
Yeah, and it's such an easy format. I mean, if we can figure out how to do this, and we're not social scientists, will you be encouraging friends, Twitter followers to join you in this? Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
Actually, there was a professor here, and she was wanting me to talk to her grad students, encouraging them to get onto Twitter because she saw all the benefits. Like, I talked to her many times. It's actually one of the people that I only knew through Twitter before I got here, and I got to meet her in person here and talk to some of her grad students. And she's like, will you please tell them everything that's amazing about Twitter and all the great stuff you can do with it? And so there are scientists that realize what a great thing this is, and I do see like the more we promote this, like I've taken screenshots of my Twitter analytics, and I'm going to be sharing it with the other grad students at CMU.
Nice.
Twitter rules, yes.
Twitter does rule.
Because I want to be able to highlight to them, hey, I had 3,000 people like click on my profile.
Yeah.
What student are you going to get that anywhere else? It's only through Twitter that you're going to be able to get those many people coming. Because one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was, it's not who you know, but who knows you. And so you have all those people learning who you are and seeing you and interacting with you in some way. And so that way, when it comes time for you to try to get a job or an academic position somewhere, or you want to collaborate with someone, those people already know you.
Your name is out there.
Right, and that's one of the big things. And so it really is a great way to self-promote you, self-promote your work. And because think about, like, if we didn't come to conferences, nobody would know anything about us. And so Twitter is, like, I think almost like that next step in doing the periscopes like this. You get to interact with us. It's not just a name on a piece of paper. You actually get to see our faces. You get to see that we're semi-normal people. We might be crazy scientists, but we're fairly normal folks. And let's see. I was recognized at a conference last year by 2 people. It was rather awesome. Yes, for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah, I've had many conferences where I go to, because I tweet like crazy when I go to conferences. I always apologize to everyone ahead of time on my Twitter feed, like it's gonna happen.
Twitter's the best for reaching people, yes.
But they always recognize me because my name is constantly in that news feed for the conference. And for a grad student, my university is a mid-sized university. It's not that big, but it's not that tiny, but it's a great way for me to promote myself and people to know me at that conference, and they know me through Twitter. it's one of the
It's-
best publication
oh, yeah.
ways that you can self-promote your stuff and your work, and
Yeah.
people get to know you. And it's nice when you walk by in a conference and you're able to say hi.
Yeah, you recognize people.
Yeah, it
and
makes
people
you feel more like
recognize
a
you.
group.
Yeah.
And that belonging with other scientists, especially when you're a new grad student, it's because I remember going to my first conference. It's scary. What mediums do you both use the most to promote scicomm?
Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter for
Absolutely.
sure.
But
Yep.
I mean, to be honest, I do try and talk to my friends at least on Facebook. Facebook for me is more of a personal
Same here.
thing. So
Yes.
I mean, I don't post as much science communication, but most of my friends, aside from
Twitter,
Twitter, yeah, I mean, I'd say I use Facebook to try and talk to my family, my friends, people I'm closer with in real life.
Yeah, and I save the big stories, like the really important
Yeah.
science stuff that I want to make sure that they all know about. I will put that on Facebook.
Yep.
I also do Instagram, but I don't necessarily do it so much for science. I do want to kind of switch over more
Yeah.
for science with that. I'd like to be able to promote field work and other people's field work on there. I think that's like a great
field
way
work,
just
yeah.
to do like kind of some nice snapshots while you're out and about and do that. I've heard some people are starting to use Snapchat for science communication.
Okay.
I haven't done that.
I haven't done that
will
yet
admit
either.
I'm still learning Snapchat. Usually the only time I ever use it is when I go hang out with my niece and nephew and they want to be able to use all the cool filters on there.
Oh, nice.
So PhD YouTubers do great videos. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Ooh.
Yes. I think that's probably like along the same lines of doing Periscope, of where
Yeah.
you can just do those short video segments that you can put out there and people can see your work. I think that would be good because that gives it a little bit more permanence and a wider audience that would be able to go and look at that. So I like that. I know our university has done videos of us doing work out in the field that they put up on YouTube. We do a BioBudge program. Our grad students do a BioBudge program where we go into elementary schools and we teach them about science. And they did a video of that showing our work with that, and that was really good. And that's still up on YouTube. So that's a nice thing too with that is those YouTube videos are up there forever. Like,
yeah.
I mean, they did that video 3 years ago, and it just happened to come back up on my Facebook timeline this week. And so, I mean, it's still there, and people can still see it. And
Yeah.
I think with that, though, too, like, I think for me to do a video on YouTube, I'd want it, like, a little bit more professionally done. I think there you would want to work with maybe students that are in your broadcast department or maybe your
Like a
official
film
university
department, yeah.
communications group with that to do those. Periscope is a great way to dip your toes in the visual water. Yes.
That's a great,
yes,
great
for
way
sure.
of phrasing it.
Yep. And this way, I think Periscope's a little bit more informal, so that way we can control it a little bit more and we don't have to, instead of jumping right into YouTube. Yes.
No, that's really great. Yeah.
So this way, like, we can just experiment a little bit more. It's easier to do. I mean, all I'm doing is holding my phone right
Yeah,
here.
we're just
You know,
having a
I don't have to
conversation,
have,
basically.
some like high class equipment, because if you don't have a good camera to actually do a video with, it really shows on those YouTube videos. And you want to make sure that you have someone who knows how to do editing and things like that. If you don't have the proper tools to do editing for those videos, it's gonna look really crappy really fast.
Yeah.
And you want that to look nice, and
You don't
if
want
it
your
doesn't,
message,
it shows really badly if it's crappy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want your message to get lost in like, oh, well, this is, I'm not going to watch this video because it's really crappily put together. Like, why would you lose you'd lose your message in that, so why would you?
Right. I mean, video streaming the science, the masses. Yes.
Yeah. No, Periscope is really cool about bringing
Yeah.
this video streaming
Yeah,
to a big general audience.
And the ease of it is great. I mean, we're just sitting, right outside the conference here. Like, we'll just spin you guys
Yeah, we'll
around
spin
real
you
quick.
around
Like,
real
right
quick.
through those doors right there is where the most of the conference is. Registration's right there. All the booths, all the talks are back there.
It's all there.
And so we could just pop outside here for a second and have a chat with you. And yeah, it's a lot easier, I think, than having to do a full-fledged production of where you're having someone running around with a camera, having the boom mic with
Absolutely.
things, and
Dealing
then
with
have to go
sound
through and edit it. It's you risk the foibles of doing things live, but it's I think this is a fun format to do, and it's just a lot more casual, and I think for a lot of us we're pretty laid back, so it makes
Definitely.
it nice. So.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, I think that YouTube definitely, having videos on YouTube is something that's really valuable in terms of, maybe you want to give a mini lecture or something. You have a topic that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, Periscope, I think the human side of live
Yes.
streaming, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The thing about a video is, I feel, at least for me, I always tend to just talk to the video, and it's like I'm not interacting with people, so I think I act differently.
Oh,
and this is like interacting.
Definitely. Yeah, this you get to be just a lot more casual, and like you said, you kind of stiffen up a little bit when you know that, okay, this is an official video, we've got to be good.
professional.
Yeah. So, and I mean, and there is a place for that for sure.
Absolutely.
But I think a lot of times when you're doing science communication, you kind of want that like behind the scenes kind of look to stuff, and where you can really get to know people. So it shows your personality a lot more than YouTube.
Agreed.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, you get to see our zaniest
Get to see the
sides
crazy
of ourselves. Yeah.
What is that, like, real scientist? Like,
Yeah.
this is real scientist
Yes,
right here.
hashtag real scientist.
Science,
Yeah. There was that hashtag going around a couple days ago.
Right, or this is what a scientist
Yes,
looks like.
that's what it
hashtag,
was.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is what
science looks like. Yes.
Yeah.
Especially cold scientists, since apparently it decided to turn 20 degrees colder here.
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know where you guys are, but where we're at, it feels like it's, 20 degrees Fahrenheit outside, so that's exciting.
Yep.
For June.
Even our Canadians were complaining about being cold. I think they were shivering more than us.
So it's like, the Canadians are complaining about being cold, you know it's cold.
Yeah. Ireland here. Hey, Ireland, awesome.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah. So, yeah, and that's one of the best things about this. I mean, we're now officially going around the world with this, and
We are, yeah.
we're just sitting here on some stairs outside the conference
In Guelph, Ontario.
Yep, and everyone's getting to come in and talk to us and see what we're doing, and that's one of the best benefits of doing scicomm and doing this live Periscope is anyone can join, anyone can ask questions, and it's so much that I like that open format to it.
It's very accessible, and I think that's something that sometimes, we think about the ivory tower of academia and like being trapped in science, but doing scicomm definitely makes it a lot more accessible.
Is this the best conference you've been to? It's tough to label like which one is the best because there's so many different things that I like about it. A lot of it for me is the interactions I get with people.
Yeah.
There are people at this conference that I will never see at any other conferences, and they are such good friends. So it's hard, like, how do you say which of your friends is best?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I feel like, it's...
Which of your children do you love
right.
most?
I mean, obviously there are some conferences of where you're like, okay, this was not as well done as something else. But IAGLR is done extremely well. I've always enjoyed it. This is the fourth IAGLR conference. Yeah, this is the fourth IAGLR conference I've been to, and they have... I love coming here. Like, I have always, are you going to Periscope each other's talk, poster session?
We missed my poster last night. I could do a redo. We just do
we could just throw it up. Yeah, would you guys like a personal poster session of Katie's stuff?
We could always
it's
do
Obelisk and Yellow Perch. I mean,
pretty
it
exciting.
is interesting.
I still have the artwork on hand. But I mean, Nicole, if you'd like to Periscope yours, I could do
I'm
it
totally
tomorrow.
great with that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got yours coming up, so.
Yep. I'll double check to make sure what time I know, because as I said, I was love to see explanation of your poster.
We can do that. We can do that sometime here.
Yep. So we'll figure out open time where we can get Katie and to get her to explain her poster and do that.
Yeah. Tomorrow, because you said tomorrow afternoon, we'll figure out a time or what time Nicole's scheduled to give her talk, and I can Periscope it from the audience. And if anyone has any questions, I can ask her.
Yeah.
I'm sure she'd appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things that we've been running into here is a lot of people, you're definitely welcome, that some people are very sensitive about having photos of their presentations put out on Twitter. We've been asked to get permission from everyone. I don't know if that's necessarily happening with all the talks.
Yeah.
I don't know how great I've been with that. I should be better, but I think it is a benefit to have people take photos. I know it's tough when you're doing results. I always try not to take pictures. I know people don't like their data being photographed.
And I mean, it's understandable. Like, you don't want to get scooped, or you don't want your data getting out there before you've had a chance to publish it. I totally understand.
And I try to, as best I can, if I am going to be live tweeting a talk, that I don't take a picture of the actual data. I will try to take a picture either before or towards the wrap up end of where you can't really see any hard data, so that way they can still cool accent. Really awesome. We're gonna have to go search around for that.
Okay.
I heard American Gods is supposed to be pretty good. So.
I did see someone post about that.
I think people shouldn't take photos. It distracts people.
I can also understand that too.
Right. Well,
I can totally understand that.
try to sit in the back as much as I can, so that way I can take photos without distracting. Not
Slash
only
tweet.
yes slash tweet. So I'm not only not distracting the person who's giving the presentation, but also not distracting the people in the audience too. So I always try to, as best I can, either sit in the back or be against one of the walls, so no one really notices me doing stuff.
I think that's important. Yeah.
But to be able to promote their work is well, we'll give it a shot and see if we like it. Should we
We'll
do
see.
Scientist, TV,
We could do live stream, TV
reviews?
shows, yeah.
Yeah, some people just go, let's have
Some
another
people-
sound and just really...
I've seen that
Yes.
a couple times. Like, we should make a list of bad conference behavior.
Right. I know that actually would be a good idea, because I think a lot of scientists could do that. I mean, how many phones have we heard go off and people
Oh my
haven't
gosh.
remembered to turn them off? And I think it's a tough thing too when you have people... Yes, please do that. Haha. Okay, we'll have to remind that. Someone
We
please
will.
tweet us to remind us to do that. But yeah, there's so many different little tricks that you can do, so that way you can still scicomm and live tweet from people's talks without being a distraction and being respectful
Right.
of their stuff. Because, you know, I've had so many scientists of where I've tweeted out their stuff, and I will also try to tag their university or whatever organization they work with, so
Yeah.
it's publicizing them, and so that way that university can either retweet it and send it out and say, hey, look what our people are doing, and so that helps them out. And I've had a lot of people either message me back or just straight up, you know, tweet me back and say, collaborate to make a list of the worst conference etiquette.
We're gonna work. I think this is an idea in motion. We may be looking out to the Twitter sphere to see what conference behaviors you guys have seen that you know have maybe been guilty of. You've learned from your mistakes. I know
Yes.
as an early grad student, I'm always still learning things. So maybe having a list of the best behaviors is even good for
best
first time
and
conference
worst.
goers.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
I think definitely.
Yeah, and I think what would be really neat is to have like some sort of online resource for people, you know, grad students or professors or anybody else coming to a conference of like good ways to do social media at a conference. It might be excellent. So those of you out there who are more adept at making websites and things like that can put that out there and, you know, let us all know, that would be great. So, but yeah, I mean, there's so many different things you can do, but by promoting other people's work, it just helps out. They usually are so grateful. I mean, yes, you're going to get one or two people who are kind of sensitive about it, but I think in general, most people are grateful for it. But yeah, so like I always try to, at the beginning of my talks, either I will put it in a slide or I'll make sure ahead of time to let everyone know that I'm Twitter friendly, photo friendly. Just go ahead and straight up, you know, scicomm out my whole talk. You know, I could care less, because I know what a kick I get out of scicomming and helping to promote people's work, and I know other people get that same enjoyment out of it, and so I want to make sure that they feel comfortable with doing that. And to me, it doesn't distract me when people are taking photos and stuff like that. It just, you kind of get in the zone of doing your talk, and so.
But I mean, it's totally like, you know, it's okay if you are, you know, sensitive about that. Like, it's to each his own. But I think it is really helpful, like Nicole said, to have a slide that says, you know, maybe have your Twitter handle on it so that people can tag you or follow you. And then I've even seen a couple people come up with like really cute hashtags.
Yeah.
There was like a Mighty Morphin Perch the other day.
Really?
Yeah, there was
yeah.
a hashtag
We're
Mighty
such
Morphin
science
Perch.
nerds.
So nerdy. But yeah, so someone came up with a hashtag for their talk, so people could like, as they're live tweeting the presentation, they had a hashtag to attach to it. So I thought that was kind of cool. I haven't seen that before.
Right, and I think as more and more people learn how to do social media, it's really going to help them out, because, you know, without it, if you don't keep experimenting with it and try it, you're never going to get comfortable enough with it, and you're always going to be kind of afraid of it. And I think it's just an age thing. I think a lot of times we think of like the younger crowd being the more likely to do scicomm, but I see here at the conference, you've got some professors, you know, who are more into the twilight of their careers doing just as much scicomm as, you know, the grad students are. And so it's really just taking the time to learn it and get comfortable with it. Start dipping your toes in the water of it and start following a few people and just start experimenting with things. You know, do your own Periscope, you know, follow people on Twitter, try doing Snapchat. Maybe you can teach us how to use it.
Exactly. If you figure out Snapchat, let us know.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think there's something to be said about sometimes stepping outside your comfort zone. You know, being, you know,
comfortable is what everyone wants to do, but sometimes to grow you have to step outside your comfort zone. And I think the same extends to social media. And
Yeah.
the more you practice it, the more you force yourself to interact with people, even in real life at conferences, the more successful I think your science career is going to be.
Right. I mean,
As scary as it can be.
yeah, because after this, I mean, Katie and I are going to talk and say, all right, how'd this go? What'd you think about this? It
Exactly.
didn't work, you know. Did you think people like this? You know, what can we do better? You know, things like that. So we're going to have a discussion about that and work on that. And so next time, you know, either one of us does this, we'll be hopefully a little bit more knowledgeable, you know, be able to figure out a few more things that are going to work for people. And
Right.
yeah,
So just learning from your experiences, I think, is so valuable, and you just got to keep. It's like, you know, running. I'm a big runner. I know
Same
Nicole
here.
runs too. You
Yeah.
know, you can't just go out and run a marathon. You have to train for it, and you got to keep
Right.
practicing over time. And same with becoming a better communicator. You got to keep practicing throughout your life.
and some days you're just going to be dragging along out there, and it's going to
Absolutely.
feel absolutely miserable. And the same thing if you do a horrible periscope and you just felt like that was just absolute worst, you're still going to be learning something from it, and it's going to make that
Always.
next one that much better.
Absolutely.
So I mean, there's so many just great benefits to this, and one of I think the biggest things for me is just the friendships I've gotten out of this. I mean, I've got a lot of really good friends, you know, at school and other places, but to be able to have those friendships with other people all around
Yeah.
the country and the world, it really helps. And
That you would have never met,
Right.
like, unless you had social media and communication.
Right, because so many people, you know, aren't going to be able to come to these conferences. There's just, you know, it's always going to end up that you're just going to be ships in the night passing by. Like
Exactly.
someone's going to go to one conference versus another. There's so many, you know, scientists at my university that could come to this one, but they choose to go to other conferences because, you know, maybe it's more freshwater science. Well, they could still do IAGLR because it's Great
Right.
Lakes science. But they chose, well, that's the one that my advisor goes to, so that's the one I'm going to go to. So that's, you never get to see that presentation,
Right.
even though it's something that you're still really interested in. But if you connected via social media, then you can still see all that amazing work and still learn about that person. And then
Absolutely.
hopefully maybe down the line be able to collaborate with them, or at like the worst, be like, hey, I've got this issue, you know, I don't know where I can find these yellow perch. I think I should be able to find them here. Like, you know, have you tried that? You know, what
Yeah.
about this? You know, it's
Just bouncing ideas off
Right.
people even is
Yeah.
super helpful. And I think it's one of those, you know, brave new world moving forward. I think that there's a lot of ways we're going to be able to use science communication in terms of collaboration in the future. Not even just communicating our science, but collaboration with other scientists
Right.
is a really powerful avenue.
Yeah, and like you said, it's only going to grow from here. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe this is the first Periscope ever from IAGLR, so
I don't know, hopefully we might
Yeah.
have the title here.
Yes. So, I mean, and, you know, if it's something that you guys enjoy, we're going to maybe try to do a few others throughout the week and see, you know, what else we can do. Maybe, you know, Periscope some of the live events going on, you know, whether it's just something as cheesy as the barbecue later tonight and let
Yeah.
you guys see some of the things that are going on at IAGLR. Maybe help convince some of you to come to IAGLR next year, which will be in Detroit.
Yeah, it's going to be in Detroit,
Which is going to be
guys.
amazing. So it will be, I think, the largest city that they've had it in quite some time.
Yeah.
So, and Detroit is really starting to turn around and become
Detroit's
an
an awesome
amazing
city.
place. So, and, you know, we usually do IAGLR into May or early June, so you can go watch a Tigers game and, you know, catch some other things. And so it's a great town now to go and hang out in. And so in the year after that, it'll be back in Canada. So if you want to be able to get that stamp on your passport, although they don't officially do
They didn't
stamps.
give me a
yeah,
stamp,
they don't
I
do
know
stamps.
that.
So I was so disappointed a
little
couple of
bummed.
years ago when
I
I
was a
had
little
my
bummed.
passport.
Hey,
And
Whitney.
hey, you want to join our Periscope?
Okay, cool. We'll see you later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
no, I think, so, you know, Detroit next year, Canada the year after. We'd always love to meet new people at IAGLR, so maybe we'll convince a couple of you.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll even, you know, Periscope your presentation tomorrow so
Yes,
people can learn
yep.
about the mute swans. That
Yeah,
would be pretty
we'll definitely
cool.
do that. We'll see how that goes. And, you know, if you guys like that, we'll maybe talk to IAGLR and other conferences that we go to, see about having them do live periscopes if people are interested in doing that. Because I think that would be a great thing to start
Yeah.
doing, so, you know, everyone could see that research, you know, because when you go and do research, you're out in the field, you get your data, you might start doing your presentations 6 months to a year after you're out in the field, and then by the time your publications come out, that could be another year or two
Yeah.
down the road. And so by being able to see a talk, you're getting some of like the most instant science out there. Like you're getting it fresh off the press before it even
Exactly.
actually technically hits the press. You know.
Yeah, you're not even on the press.
Right.
Pre-press.
So, yeah, so that would be a great way to do it. And then also, like we were saying, doing those field periscopes where you can actually see the science happening
/ lab
live.
periscopes. We don't want to stiff the lab people. Maybe
Right.
we'll do some lab
Yes.
periscopes
Yep.
too.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting lab work and things that you can see. So that would be great. So yeah, definitely let us know what you think would be interesting for you guys to watch, and we will make sure that we see if we can accommodate that as best we can. So because we're definitely for this. Hey. So
We just keep, and that's the nice part about conference. We just keep seeing people we know walk by, and
yeah, you make so many good friends at conferences. I've got so many conference buddies and so many amazing conference stories to tell. That's one of the nice, and you leave a conference so inspired.
Every single time. It's like, it's basically the equivalent of like getting a caffeine shot, I'd say. Like espresso. Like you basically go to a conference and you're like super pumped. You're going to go out, you're going to do science, because listening to everyone reminds you why you fell in love with doing science and why you think this is so interesting. I mean, we all have our reasons for getting into science, and I think conferences are one of those things that just kind of jots that memory time and time again, at least for me.
Yes, and it's sometimes when you get into the mode of where you're just having to writing, or if you're just doing lab work and you're in the lab every day, it gets to the point where you're just like, I just don't want to do this anymore. You're tired of being in there, and to be able to have that inspiration to go back out and push through it, it really helps you a lot.
Remind you why you do it.
Yeah, because I mean, just like with any job, you kind of just get into that point of where you're just like, you're just doing the same stuff. I just don't want to do it. I need a break. And conferences provide those inspirational breaks to be able to do it.
Absolutely.
And push through and be like, I can't wait till I'm done, and to be able to like show everyone all this awesome stuff that we just did. And because you got so many people here that really care about you. That's the thing. Like,
and they care about the work you're doing
too.
too.
And they'll ask you like, where are you at, like with your thesis, or how's that research going? I can't wait to hear about it. And so you get inspired because you want to be there to be able to show them, hey, I'm doing all this great work, because they care enough about you. It's like kind of having that parent that shows up at your sporting event. You always did a little bit better when your parents were there because you knew someone was there caring about you and cheering you on. It's the same thing here with all the scientists, whether it's other grad students or professors or other people more in the private sector or public sector, that they really care about you, and you make such amazing relationships, and it just keeps you going, which everybody needs.
Those hard times when you're stuck in your office on your computer writing.
Oh, wow, cool.
That's
so,
good.
Yeah, learn a new one.
I know. Again, and everything, but
Okay.
But I think you're good with wrapping it up?
I think I'm good with wrapping it up. If you guys don't have any other questions right now, but I mean, feel free to tweet at us and
yes, for sure.
See if you have any other questions, and we're gonna definitely do a little bit. I think more. I like this Periscope.
Yeah,
business.
This was fun.
This was
really good.
I think we're gonna have to do something else here.
Yep. And if you guys have other questions, if you want us to talk more about scicomm or other things like that, just let us know. If you want to talk about our research, definitely hit us up, because any good scientist always wants to talk about their research.
Honestly, that's a Pandora's box. Yep. Like anytime you ask a scientist about their research, be prepared to be there for a while, because we nerd out.
We're like, someone interested about our work? Yes.
And I have them in my sights. Yes.
I'm not letting them go. So so let us know what you think about this, and we'll definitely do this again, because I think we both had a good time with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. So hope you guys have a great rest of the afternoon, and you'll be seeing us around IAGLR, and definitely hearing a lot more of us from Twitter.
Absolutely. So thanks guys for chiming in, and we appreciate your questions.
Yep. Have a good one.
See you guys.